Welcome to EdTech Mondays Africa. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. On this edition, we're coming to you from South Africa, where we're spotlighting Recommendation 9 of the 2024 Mastercard Foundation EdTech Conference on lowering access barriers to EdTech through strategic public-private partnerships. Jabulani Technical School in Soweto serves about 1,300 learners who are mainly from under-resourced communities. We're here to highlight the impact that access to technology has on teaching and learning. How easy has technology made your experience as a teacher?
One teacher in a classroom without technology, you can't reach all the learners. So what technology does is that it enables learners to get feedback instantly, and then they can move. Say, for example, our learners work on the computer and they do the questions, they try and get the feedback same time. And then if there was just a teacher without technology, you need to pile scripts and mark and then give feedback maybe after a week or so.
How are you able to navigate it with the learners? Did you have to first learn how it works before you sent it down to the students?
OLICO created the solution, and then we train the people to use it. And then in terms of the learners get usernames, and first week they get introduction to using computer, like the basic, using the keyboard and a mouse. And then from there, they're ready to go. What's the best part about it for you as a teacher? It helps me to focus on learners that need attention, because those learners that are easily moving, they can move, they're getting feedback, so you don't have to really worry that maybe they are sitting there doing nothing. And so we'd like to ask some of the learners how exactly they're using this technology and the best part about it.
Technology has done a lot, especially for us, because usually at first we use textbooks, as we mentioned earlier on. And like textbooks didn't explain more. Instead, we wanted something that could explain even better. Especially in the OLICO website, what I like about it is that they give you a throughout video explaining about the task that you're about to do before you are about to complete one of their assignments, so that you can understand more and better about mathematics.
We're able to access the website on our phones when we're at home, and it is offline. So it really helps because we sometimes don't have access to internet, like data, something like that. So it's really helpful. When
access barriers are lowered, there is impactful learning that happens. But this cannot happen without strategic partnerships. And we ask the question, who exactly is behind OLICO, the solution being used in this classroom?
OLICO Maths Education is a non-profit organization. We've been around for nearly 20 years, and we're really on a mission to make maths make sense.
How did it come about? What was the idea behind it?
Maths, more than any other subject, is a gateway to opportunities. And what we've got to be doing is creating more and more opportunities for our young people in this country and across Africa. The importance of getting learners competent and confident in mathematics unlocks future opportunities for them like no other subject can.
How affordable is OLICO for a parent, a learner, a teacher?
OLICO is 100% free to the learner. We're funded by a number of very generous donor funding partnerships. Our online resources are available open source as well, so people can even take and adapt them if they want to. They can access it for free. And then we have quite a large partnership program where we've developed materials and resources to help improve accessibility wherever we can, so that we remove those barriers to access and remove the barriers to improving mathematics.
What kind of partnership do you have with the telcos?
One of the things we've been working on over the last few years, and really since COVID, was working at how do we use WhatsApp, which is so widely used in this country, to improve maths education. And so we are providing tutors on the other end of a WhatsApp service that learners then get access to additional support, and in places where they have very few resources other than a WhatsApp connection. And so the telcos providing that connectivity makes a massive difference, and it means that we can essentially put a tutor in the pocket of every South African learner in the country.
One of the challenges with EdTech innovators is them not being able to get buy-in from the government, for example, so they can embrace the technology in the public schools. How did you go about it?
I think in our particular case, we work predominantly after school, so it hasn't been a difficult. We're not trying to impose on what's happening already in the mainstream sort of schooling system. And so we're really supplementing what's happening already. And so that hasn't been a really difficult hurdle to have to overcome.
Right.
And I think there is a sense that government is rightfully cautious in some of the EdTech space because we have promised a lot. And I think what we know is that EdTech works best as in conjunction with a teacher and a skilled tutor who's able to move learners.
The lesson I'm getting here is that first you had to make sure the content aligns to the South African curriculum. Yeah. But how did that conversation come about? Because there's the part where we have innovators not being able to know where to start when approaching the government.
Yeah.
How were you able to break down those barriers of access to the government?
So I think a major pain point for government and the difficulty of being a maths teacher in this country is that so many of your class are struggling with some of the fundamental and foundational skills that maybe they should have been a little bit more skilled on by the time they were leaving primary school.
Right.
And so what we're able to do is really meet that particular pain point by taking the time that's available after school to be able to really supplement what is needed to give a good foundation for learners so that when they're working with their grade level curriculum, they can do so very productively.
The school has been able to leverage technology in transferring knowledge to the learners. So we're here to find out how the teachers are doing this.
You know, this is 21st century revolution. Everything about them, if you introduce technology, they grasp the concept easily. For example, let's look at in power system. I can be in class and I'm explaining, let's say for a motor starter, but once you include technology and you make them see maybe on laptop those videos, they understand better and they grasp better.
The components I'm using, they are too sensitive. So technology has made it much more easier. We're using software to simulate those circuits before we come to hardware. So before we were starting on a breadboard whereby maybe you end up burning the components and stuff.
How much more support do you need for you to be able to even have a better experience as a teacher?
We are under-resourced. When I say under-resourced, you find that in this electrical workshop right now, for me now, to make every child to do that practical, I've got maybe 3 laptops, and that makes my life difficult. And it takes time also for me to able to cater one by one learner. And it's quite a number of days to do those practicals. But if I can get more resources, hence my practicals are going to be easier also to do. And the children, they learn very fast.
Now that we've heard from the teachers and how exactly they are incorporating technology into their teaching methodologies, let's hear from the students themselves or the pupils at Jabulani Technical School and how they're applying technology from the classroom into their practical applications.
We're no longer using textbooks. We're using called PDFs or summed up information that is briefly mainly on the purpose of what we're doing, and it dwells even more than previous years, because if you look back when we were still using textbooks, they had a lot of errors and they were not more diverse in terms of the electrical or electronic trade. But since you said you're using technology, you're incorporating a lot of designs and softwares. For example, if maybe say I want to check something online or just doing a DIY project.
So the use of technology helps us to save time, save the equipment, and produce great results. So what technology has done for us, it has made us to save cost, build projects on time, and even get our things on time.
As yourselves, you represent a group of learners who have access to technology. But as learners, what would you want those without access to the devices that you have to be done for?
I would like them to be equal, have equal equipment. They also have to have the experience of what we're enjoying right now, the privileges that we have. As you said, we're a diverse country, you have to be equal.
We've heard from the teachers, we've heard from the learners, but we want to understand what was the vision behind investment in technology at Jabulani Technical School.
The main purpose of just trying to introduce this technical subject is to try and equip learners with skills so that when they move out of the world of work, out of grade 12, they are able to create themselves something. For the past 10 years, our results were not good in terms of technical subject. The reason being, all our learners who were registered at the technical school were meant to do mathematics and physical science. Those two subjects were compulsory. Unfortunately, it deprived most of our learners because the results were not forthcoming. Learners were getting more marks in terms of practical components, but getting less marks in terms of math and science. Then we sat down as a team, we develop a strategic planning with the entire team of Jabulani Technical, where we came up with different strategies that would try and enhance performance. Then we thought of trying and inculcate a lot of technology that will try to enable abantwana to increase their understanding, to increase their level of thinking, to have some different innovative. Without technology, our results were low, but when we try and introduce the issue of the smart boards, then the performance improved. So with that program, we are up to date, and in terms of technology, we are saying if this could be introduced to other lower grades, we're going to have some excellent results.
How have the learners responded to the technology that's being used in the school?
The moment we started introducing this technology in the school, we found that the number of absenteeism for learners, it dropped. Many learners were being absent, but when we start to introduce, they found that there is no way that we can miss school. We need to go to school and attend so that we see how this interaction work. The moment they started supplying us with the smart boards, even though they were supplying us with only 4 classes, but the learners, all the learners were interested of attending in those 4 classes, only to find that it's not easy. It means they need to work hard so that they've got access to the smart board.
How have partnerships helped the school become a better place school where EdTech is concerned?
Partnership where they play the most important role in we say, for example, we engage the Toyota, we engage different stakeholders who came into our institution to try and uplift the marks. We had another company that donated smart board, tablets that are supposed to be issued to learners. As I've indicated, all the smart boards are not installed in all the classes. Therefore, in order to try and supplement that, we had to get involved with other companies who eventually donated the tablets that are really assisting us in terms of getting more information, in terms of doing referral research where learners are able to understand the concept in a deeper way.
In terms of sustainability, how are you able to sustain the technology?
When technology grows, we also need to equip our educators. We also need to equip our learners when time is right, depending on the nature of the syllabus. It changes always. As it changes, therefore, the technology as well has to change. We also invite the department who would come on board to try and install any other software that is really current during the time.
Also, the school itself, it takes initiatives to train the teachers within the school so that they are in par. They are not disappointed when learners are in class.
Technology has allowed for more presence by the learners in their classrooms, and the comprehension is better, but this cannot happen without the support, not just from the government, but also from partnerships. And joining us to have this conversation on lowering access barriers to EdTech through public-private partnerships, we're joined by Mr. Seliki Tlabane, who is the Chief Director, Mathematics, Science and Technology and Curriculum Enhancement Programs, Department of Basic Education in the Republic of South Africa. For a long time, because of the apartheid era in South Africa, a number of people were denied access to education. Now that we've got technology in the picture, how has it widened the access opportunity for learners here?
The appropriate government policies have actually tackled the challenge of ensuring that we reduce the gap between the have and the have-nots. Government has promulgated a number of pro-poor policies that ensure that even children in the deep rural areas have access to education. We provide free meals for our learners. We provide free learning resources for our learners. And technology, with the advent of technology, it also gives us an opportunity to adopt other solutions like the broadcast solutions, where you are able to reach learners in the far-flung areas. The apartheid era has dealt a serious blow to the country in terms of infrastructure development. So we're grappling with huge backlogs in terms of infrastructure, but technology presents an opportunity to bridge that. You are able to educate learners through technology, and that the barriers towards accessing education are dealt with.
Why are public-private partnerships important for the integration of technology in education?
Public-private partnerships are a very powerful vehicle through which collectively we can bring about quality education to our children. The private sector brings in the power of innovation that they possess, and that they are able to test solutions and research what works and what doesn't work in a very rapid way, and be able to bring cost-effective solutions. On the other hand, the public sector brings in scale, it brings in reach. It also provides a platform whereby the private sector can contribute towards the development of the country by supporting the development of young people while they're still going through their schooling age.
What did the government have to do to make it easier for the private sector to then come and plug into some of the gaps that they felt the public education ecosystem needed?
Government controls policy development and the policy environment. So through our enabling policies, we have made it possible for private sector to partner with us, and where we make access into our schools possible when private sector would like to work with us. And by creating this enabling environment at policy point of view, as well as supporting implementation by opening the doors into our schools for private sector to work with school principals, with teachers, with learners. We have also, as government, zero-rated some of the educational platforms so that learners can be able to access these platforms and the resources that are vastly available on these platforms, free of charge. We also develop policies around teacher development and capacity, and this assists in creating an enabling environment for EdTech to support delivery of quality education.
And when you talk about good classroom practice, what kind of training does the government offer teachers? Is it before they are deployed in schools or after they are deployed in schools?
The Department of Basic Education is in the main responsible for teacher development. So these are the teachers who are already in practice, and that we develop programs to ensure that on a continuous basis they are developed and they keep up to speed with the rapidly changing world and the demands that are placed on the profession itself. The Department of Higher Education, which is in South Africa a different department, is responsible for teacher training, which is pre-service, before they get into service. So teacher preparation. And the Department of Higher Education has developed digital skill standards for initial teacher training, so that the teachers who get out of our universities, they already come possessing this kind of skills that will enable them to operate within a digital environment. So as a government, various government departments work together to ensure that teachers are appropriately prepared to operate within a digital environment.
When we talk about lowering access barriers, we also factor in the underserved communities. And looking at South Africa being a diverse ecosystem where we're looking at learning in different languages, we're looking at learners at different levels of access, how are we making sure that we are still bringing them into the ecosystem through technology?
It is through public-private partnerships, as well, as I indicated earlier on, where innovative solutions can be developed, even for the under-resourced communities. The type of technologies that can easily be deployed, that can easily work in environments where you do not have the advanced type of development that you'd find in urban areas. So some of them would be, the type of technologies where we work offline, and that we deploy technologies where even without internet, teachers will be able to use technology, where you've got local content servers and creating local Wi-Fi networks using a number of brilliant technologies that have been developed. This creates almost a replica type of an environment within these communities, where there's no electricity, the solar panels being deployed. And as I indicated, it is through public-private partnership that we may be able to do this. It's also about creating content in local languages so that children can be able to access education in their mother tongue. Government coming with appropriate policies that would make content available free of charge to these impoverished communities, so that money must not be an inhibitor, but they must be able to get these resources.
What has worked that the rest of Africa can learn from South Africa?
Well, one thing that has worked in South Africa is a public-private partnership. We've got the private sector that has great interest in education, and they constantly knock on the door of basic education, asking a question of how can we help you? What role can we play? So it is something that has actually worked. But we will be humble enough as well to say we would really also love to learn from our sister countries in Africa, because definitely there are brilliant models that have been deployed in those countries that can be deployed here where we have not done well. It's not in every aspect where we had it right, but we learn from our mistakes. It's important to work with speed when you're working with technology, because before you know it, the technology that you were planning around becomes very obsolete. So the agility that is required when dealing with the aspect of technology is something that we believe other African countries can really pursue.
How exactly can we lower access barriers to EdTech through strategic public-private partnerships? Let's find out from our panel of experts. Gabriel, do you want to take us through how technology has played a role in your education journey so far?
All of this started back in 2014, December, when my family and I moved to South Africa. At the time, obviously when you move to a new place, you have to find a way to navigate your way around, right? And part of the way I could actually do that was using the internet. And it kind of became a struggle at some point in time because every time my parents always gave me money to actually purchase data. And every money I spend, I always spend it on data. Every money I ask for, and they ask me, how did I spend that money? It's data. It got to a point that, okay, I had to start looking for other means for me to get access to the internet. And at that time, we had access to the Twane Wi-Fi. For you to be in grade 12, you need to have all of the knowledge from grade 10, grade 11, for you to be sound in grade 12. So it was a thing of, I have to focus on my grade 12 stuff during the day, and in the library, find my way to get content regards to grade 10, grade 11 work. That is where Siyavula content came in, where I could actually get access to books. Fast forward to COVID. At that point in time, you cannot go to campus. The only way you could actually learn was via the internet. Video content were posted on the ClickUp platforms. That's where the journey actually started to mentor people. And there's a lot of benefit to it. For me, it made me realize where I actually started, how I started. It made me realize, it kept me humble, if I can say that. It kept me humble. It was a thing of, it reminded me of where I started, and it's also helped me to keep whoever I'm mentoring from every landmine that I actually stepped on. They don't have to do that. They don't have to go through that. I might save them time.
Wallace, I'm coming to you. This is one of your students at the university. Tell me about how you are embracing EdTech and what are the impediments to access to EdTech, and how exactly do you think these impediments can be worked through for you to be able to even accelerate EdTech in the university even more?
The university in particular, when it comes to digital infrastructure, made a strategic decision quite a number of years ago already to invest quite heavily in digital technologies, as well as providing an opportunity for all our students to access the material, as we're a contact-based university, but to access the academic material on other platforms. And the University of Pretoria provides free Wi-Fi for its registered students as well as staff. And we've expanded that free internet, obviously, as well, connectivity, but also Wi-Fi to our residences. So that gives you a sense that the University of Pretoria, we take EdTech as well as the provision of it very seriously. It's not an add-on. It's part and parcel of the UP way, as we call it, for our students.
It's interesting, actually, that you say that, because we do have the private sector players here. We have Ingenie, we have Siyavula Foundation, and the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. And, as private sector players in the educational technologies sector, the question to the three of you now is, where are the gaps in lowering access barriers? Because he talked about data and said how for every piece of content he had to access online, there had to be some financial cost to it. And like Wallace has mentioned also, there's the bit of the expense that is attributed to connectivity. How do we make sure that we are lowering access barriers, and what is the role of public-private partnerships in making this happen?
At Siyavula, what we did early on was make a strategic decision that while we are a technology provider, you want to set your barrier to entry as low as possible. And in an African context, that typically means the phone, mobile phone. So that was one of our early decisions. And then what has proven to be instrumental for us then is the ability to engage with mobile networks. And they've zero rated our platform for learners in South Africa. So our platform consists of openly licensed textbooks and an adaptive practice service that complements those books. And then if learners are using that practice service, there are other tools for teachers that then build on that. But that platform is free for learners. It can be financially free, but then still have these other barriers. So zero rating has played a key role there. And in enabling and focusing on phones, because I think that is the lowest barrier we can possibly achieve in an African context, is to cater for phones and reduce the data costs. But I think the real barrier is sort of in a South African context that it's very difficult to arrange zero rating. So Siyavula is zero rated, our platform is zero rated on a number of mobile networks. And we're often approached by other organizations, public benefit organizations, who've doing great work in some other sector for advice on how to get zero rated.
Right. And that's just on the connectivity part, because affordable connectivity makes it easier for content to be accessed. But above and beyond, the connectivity, there's so much that plugs into EdTech, like the content itself, the policy surrounding the content. So I really want to hear Samke and Gigi's views on this as well.
I think that South Africa is specifically unique. We have some intergenerational access issues, right? So we have a lot of exclusion and a lot of access in one country. So we're quite unequal in that perspective. And so that trajectory for development is quite different. And that's why, from a policymaker's perspective, they might be interested in ensuring that the population has access to basic services. And to just be very specific, education, access to the internet is a basic service. But there is also a leap moving from basic services to now technology and how it can enhance educational outcomes. And we haven't found a medium, I would say, in South Africa, because the conversations between government, private sector, civil society is fragmented and our vantage points are different. So if we look at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, being a civil society organization, we engage a lot on setting priorities for the development of a young person, which we use to influence government priorities that goes into national plans of action. But we don't have in that conversation venture builders. So we don't know what a commercial entity's perspective is on filling that gap. And so I think for me, it'll always be coordination being a critical area where we could find us, closing that gap to access to EdTech.
Gigi, you as Ingenie play a huge role in ensuring that the content that's produced and released into the market is the content that is right for the South African context and nuance. What role are you playing in making sure that these edtechs or educational technologies are aligned to South Africa's nuances?
We support entrepreneurs who are on the ground working to solve the problems that we often have experienced or complained about, right? We've got a portfolio of over 60 companies that we've worked with pan-African, but currently we work with the MasterCard Foundation in supporting South African entrepreneurs. And what that has allowed us to do is expand and offer a think tank arm. And in that think tank, we're thinking about evidence around what actually makes sense for a society in South Africa. And also, how does that then affect the entrepreneurs that are doing the work? Because part of our pillars is around evidence-based education. So when we're talking about you want to take content onto a public server, everybody's excited about that. But then the question is around, is this content appropriate? Is it safe? And is it effective? And I think it doesn't exist in a silo of just Ingenie, because what that allows our EdTech founders to do, which for me is often an issue around partnership, is that everybody technically knows what EdTech is, but a lot of people are like, but how do you prove efficacy, right? How are you saying that this content will actually lead to better results in the classroom? And so with that work with our founders that we try to bring really close into practice, we want them to then go to a DBE and be able to say, these are the stats. These are the ways that we're showing that our technology actually makes a difference. It leads to those right outcomes. And then I think it helps with adoption. And so there's such a big need for us as a country to really come together and set up a framework that can be used for auditing a EdTech, so that a government stakeholder can say, actually, this has been audited, it's verified, we know that it works, it can actually scale. And it really just helps the conversation move so much faster, because right now that agility just isn't there.
Samke, I know you're going to add something, but I want to cross over to Wallace first. How do we make sure that we are picking up the pace, but also being able to strategically identify what content works for us in learning institutions like the University of Pretoria?
There's a very clear reason for engagement with anyone at school level, and that's for them to come to the University of Pretoria or any other higher education institution and hopefully graduate so they can start their life and live their best career, whichever one it is. It's not to provide them with content. It's not to provide them with WhatsApp or with free data. That's not the point. That's the facilitators. That's the infrastructure you create around the primary purpose. And I'll say, just from my perspective, the primary purpose is for that individual that we engage with, which is hopefully Gabriel, that he can go utilize the content as best as he can on his time frame. So the focus is graduation. I need to engage with you so that you can graduate. Come in and go out. Don't get stuck in here. Okay. And how do we facilitate that from all the knowledge and expertise and skill that we have? You can take development theory, you can look at everything out there, and how do you premise that to one clear vision and goal at the end of the day? Institutionally, you've got to be clear. I think we all are to some extent. Government has got to be clear. And then we can align or agree or disagree on it.
Gabriel, what kind of changes do you want to see? Because, we can talk about partnerships all day based off of your lived experience. How much better would you want technology to work in the education ecosystem so it can benefit not just yourself, but people who have gone through lived experiences like yours?
Back in the COVID era, right, in the COVID time, when people couldn't come to campus, we're going to have this lending system where we give out computers to students, right, so that they can make use of, and maybe after they graduate, they return it or something, right? But they rolled that back, right? Why can't we bring it back, right? And I also heard that it was a thing of, okay, yes, you get a laptop, but you still pay for it, right? Why can't we bring that thing back where we can, this is all open to the whole private-public sector thing where people can actually invest in this stuff, because now, at the end of the day, I'm talking from a computer science perspective now, right? It's a thing of, at the moment, there's a shortage of actual tech workers out there, right? Do you understand? The whole idea is, I don't want the dream to end, because there's a reason why you actually started this journey, right? Why should the limited access to hardware be a reason why you're not finishing?
Samke, I want to come to you. You work with an organization that pretty much puts equitable access at the forefront. What are some of the learnings from where you sit that you can share with us that maybe the rest of the team and whoever is watching from across the continent are able to factor in when they're looking at investing in EdTech and partnering to invest in EdTech and adopt EdTech in learning institutions?
When you think about young people and accessing EdTech, they don't start at the point of accessing university. They start at the point of early childhood development. And the issues that were raised around children not being able to read for meaning by grade 4 starts from the fact that at an early childhood development level, they're not being stimulated to play and to engage, and they don't have practitioners that are trained to work with children under 5. By the time you get to grade 1, already at a private school, kids are already accessing coding and robotics. So if a child in grade 1 in Joburg, Bryanston, for example, is already interacting and engaging with robotics and coding, and a child in a real context has not, those learning outcomes are going to be different. Secondly, we're talking about a proliferation of EdTechs in this country specifically. And for me, I would say, I'd go as far as to say, learning pathways are not clearly defined. What are all these EdTechs feeding into? What are the outcomes? Are there specific jobs that we're trying to catalyze through this, the content that's being created? And if we look at that in this context, there are some jobs that we need to reimagine. And are those EdTechs catching up with that? They might very well be. For the mere fact that they already are looking at education, coming together with technology, they are. But they are certainly not communicating with governments. And I'll tell you why. The National Strategy for Accelerated Action for Children that is currently being tabled at a cabinet level does not include any of whatever is coming out at an EdTech level from what should be prioritized. So we've got a national plan of action driving government priorities, interventions, and spending, not informed by whatever venture building is happening at an EdTech level. So the conversations are not together, and we're not creating a pathway towards specific jobs, new jobs that we need to reimagine.
When we're talking about lowering access barriers, we're not talking about those who already have access. We're pretty much talking about those who have barely any access or are in underserved, under-resourced areas. And so what would be the three things, or maybe the one thing that you would say needs to happen for us to be able to lower these access barriers to EdTech through public-private partnerships?
Well, if we have ecosystem strengthening initiatives, engage the entire ecosystem, open it up, let's all get in the conversation in our formal and informal spaces. Let's ensure that we're actually giving very tangible ways that you can enter in. If I'm working in policy, I need to very tangibly tell you, this is the engagement period on this policy, and this is how you submit your interventions versus a theoretical perspective.
There are so many EdTech companies, they would benefit from that ecosystem. It's not at risk for the government, but where would you go and look for this list if you're an IPP? Siyavula has been approached by numerous organizations who are doing sector surveys. So we've participated in many and we fill out the form, but there shouldn't need to be sector surveys. If you want to operate in government schools, then there should be a list. It mustn't be onerous, because there are a number of very exciting exploratory edtechs that are quite small organizations, and you won't know about them. It can't just be who's got the best website either. It needs to be amplified. It needs exposure. And I don't think it gets it in the way it needs to.
Reflecting on this conversation, I think the one thing that also stands out is we need some form of a test bed and a place where people can come play in models like financing models. I think traditionally we think CSI come contribute. They've also got their own priority areas, right? So how do we think about blended financing? How do we think about a different experiment? And I think you need a test bed for either financing, you need a test bed in an environment where people who have technology that are small, that can come and play and can interact. Part of the creation process and the partnership angle is rooted in who are we solving for. So even if it's a collective of 30 or how many people we want, that we often speak to as practitioners, right? Where we get a test bed in an environment that allows us to take all these unique ideas, bring them into one form, iterate and iterate again so that we find something that's uniquely South African and can actually be shared continental.
Which is also part of your role as a tech hub to sort of give the insights into what's working, what's not working, what can work better. Yeah. And so I think it's collective effort. Wallace.
I think for me, it's definitely important that we need to have a clear vision of where we would like to end as EdTechs at the end of the day, but also in terms of partnership with government. And I'm not sure if that's well defined in general, if we all know where we're heading towards in this educational space. And the other thought that I just wanted to say is, I think we should not think that there's actually in this space anything that's truly free. And I've noticed some people really want stuff to be free, which is a strange concept. If you think someone has to pay for something somewhere, it might be free for me, but somebody else had to pay for this. Somebody else had to fund this. And that's the model we're in. So I think that conversation also needs to take place of those things that are free for the user, things that are maybe zero rated from a company perspective as such. And how's the funding models going to look ultimately? What's the benefit or return on investment in this space? Because if we're not serious about that discussion, we end up in a space where cost becomes a barrier, but is almost the elephant in the room. We haven't discussed it. So I just want to say cost. And I think there's definitely significant opportunities for us to be in a much better space, I think, with the conversations I've had here today.
Thank you all so much for making this conversation worthwhile. It has been a conversation around lowering access barriers to EdTech through public-private partnerships, evaluation of the business models, like Wallace has put it, and Gabriel says we need more funding to be able to invest in technologies that work, but also be able to provide connectivity for the learners to access these technologies. And I think around equitable access, we did hear Samke talk about really looking into what works, looking at the environments, the fragmentation, and being able to curate solutions that would have more buy-in from the government who have evaluated the policies. And the de-risking factor, of course, the test beds that Gigi talked about. So really an enriching conversation. This edition has shown us what's possible when EdTech partnerships are intentional, inclusive, and rooted in the local context of countries' education ecosystems. For more on EdTech Mondays, you can visit our social media platforms on the Mastercard Foundation and CNBC Africa platforms. I'm Joy Doreen Bira. Until next time, Hamba Gathle.